Alright, what's going on, guys? Welcome to episode 2 of my book review series where I go over some of the books that I use to identify the fish that I catch. If you're not familiar with my channel, it's kind of a multi-species life listing channel, so I'm always out not only trying to catch as many different species as I can, but always looking to try to catch some new species that I've never caught before. And in doing so, there's a lot of fish species that look very, very similar, almost identical if you don't know what you're looking for. So one of the best ways I'm able to identify them, and it's usually after the fact, is from the pictures that I took and comparing those pictures to not only the pictures in these books that I have, but also to the descriptions with the pictures and drawings, I guess. So last time we looked at the book that I used for identifying the fishes found in the freshwaters of Florida. So what was it called? Fish. I think it was called Fishes in the Freshwaters of Florida. Feel free to check that one out. It's my favorite book for freshwater fish identification in the state. Today we're going to look at the, essentially, it's not exactly the saltwater equivalent, but it's one of the two books that I use to identify fish that I catch in the saltwater here in Florida. I haven't found a Florida-specific book for saltwater. I don't think that actually even exists. But the book we're going to talk about is right here. So it is a field guide to coastal fishes from Maine to Texas. So it covers the entire east coast of the U.S. and the Gulf of Mexico. Um, it's one of my two favorite books that I use. I'll do another review for the other book that I use for the saltwater fishes in Florida, but there are just so many different fish species. This book covers almost 1,000. I think it's like 900 something different species. Some of them are not found in Florida. Some of them are found, obviously, all the way from Maine to Texas. But being kind of geographically where it is, Florida does have a really, really good number of saltwater species that are available. So a vast majority of these 900 something species are found in Florida waters. Now, it is called coastal fishes, and to me, when I think coastal, I think of near the coast. But there are also a lot of fish species in here that are deep water species that are found well away from the coast in some really deep water. So those are also included, as well as some, I guess they could be considered freshwater species, but there's some species that could also kind of be found in some brackish water. So it's not just inshore saltwater species in this book, it's also some freshwater slash brackish species, as well as a lot of deep water species that you're not going to encounter fishing the coastal waters, like kind of the name would imply, at least in my opinion. But yeah, so what I would like to do now is kind of go over the inside of this book a little bit with you and show you a couple things that help me when I'm looking through this and what I'm looking for when I'm trying to identify these fish. So let's go ahead and let's do that. Alright, so let's go ahead and let's look at the book. I got a couple things bookmarked that I would like to show you. Obviously, you got your introduction, table of contents, your standard book stuff that I'm going to skip through. The first thing that I would like to kind of point out is these two pages right here. Um, Basically, if you want to identify fish, you're going to have to know a couple things to look for. So what I really like about this book, it has pretty good details about the different types of patterns that different fish could have. So if you look at the top row here, this is a molded pattern, reticulating pattern. So you got to look at what your fish has compared to what the picture has, and each picture is going to have a description telling you what kind of pattern it has. But if you're not sure what the different patterns are, this is a good little starting point for you to look at. And then as well as the different names for the different body parts. So each fish is different. Could be a little tough to figure out what you're looking at on different fish if you've never caught them before, especially if they're species, or I guess not species, but families of fish, like maybe skates, that aren't shaped as traditional fishes are. So they do a pretty good job detailing what all of these look like on the different types of fish that you're going to encounter. And then if we keep going a little bit further here, the families of fish, which is another great starting point. They show you a little shadowed picture of what the families of fish look like. So if you've caught a fish, you're not sure what it is, you just kind of got to match up the shadow of the fish that looks like your fish, and that's kind of a really good place to start. And it gives you a little description about each of the families, the number of species listed in those families that are in the book, and then obviously tells you what page to go to start looking at them. But let's go ahead and skip through this. There's a lot of different families, as you can see, and let's start with, I guess, the meat of the book, what the different species are. So if we flip over to the first page of the actual species, the first fish is a hagfish. Then we got a sea lamprey. So this is basically the structure for all the different fish. You're going to get a nice little detailed drawing of all the fish. And then on the left side, you're going to have the different features of the fish. You're going to have the habitat, so you can kind of know the range of the fish. So this, obviously, I'm probably not going to encounter in Florida because it is all the way from Canada and Greenland. Actually, it is down to Florida. I didn't think it came that far south. Look at that, you learn something new every day. I thought these were much more northern species, but I guess their range does extend all the way down to Florida. But yeah, some of these fish, like I mentioned, since this book covers such a wide area, they are not going to be found in Florida. But I guess people from not Florida are also looking at this video. So for you guys, I'm sure that helps as well. But let's look at like the sea lamprey. So the range is Greenland to North Florida and rarely Northwest Florida. So interesting. Anyway, so yeah, all these fish are going to have a little picture, little features, habitat, and then biology about the fish. It'll tell you a little bit about what they eat, what they like to do, that sort of thing, which could help you also catch these fish if that's what you're after. And let's skip through here. I got a couple other things picked out that I would like to show you. Over here in my introduction, I believe I mentioned how it also has some fish species that aren't just saltwater species. So like the eastern mosquito fish is going to be a freshwater species, but I guess it is found in some brackish water at some points. So it does include some of those. The least killifish is another one of those. Sailfin molly is another one of those. I would consider these like freshwater species, but I guess they do venture into saltwater a little bit, or at least brackish. The mangrove mosquito fish, though, that's a brackish or marine one. I don't know if these guys are found in freshwater, so it does include some of these freshwater species that do sometimes venture into salt or brackish water. And I also mentioned how this book doesn't just have coastal species like the ones I pointed out so far pretty much, but it does have some of these like offshore deep water ones like the silver ruffy. It'll tell you where it's found, so at depths of about 1,000 to 4,800 feet. So to me, that is nowhere near the coast. So it does have a very wide variety of fish species. Obviously, your inland shallow ones like these mangrove, mosquito fish, and whatnot, all the way to these really, really deep water species. So it is rather encompassing. But let's keep flipping through. I got a couple other things picked out here that I would like to show you. Where did that go? Right here. So the damselfish. So I don't know about you guys, but damselfish, in my opinion, are one of the more difficult families of fish to be able to identify. And this book does a fairly good job, but I think having these drawings is a little bit of a detriment because they don't always look like they do in real life. So I think the cocoa damselfish is a great example. Maybe ideally these are what are these guys supposed to look like, but all the ones I've caught do not have this like yellow belly. At least I never caught a juvenile. Juveniles probably do, but the adults that I've caught do not have this kind of yellow belly. So when I've seen pictures of them, the pictures look brown. They look more like Beau Gregory's, but for some reason in this book they have them with these really, really bright yellow bodies. So I don't know if that's like just like an artist. Um, Rendering is not the right word. Expression maybe. I don't know if the artist just tried to make them look like that more to be able to differentiate them better. But in real life, to me, Cocos don't look like this. At least not the pictures I've seen, and not the ones that I've caught. So that's a little bit of a, I guess, detriment with this book. A lot of the ones I've seen look more like these. So it would be nice to have a picture included, not just a drawing like this has. But let's keep going a little farther. A couple more things I wanted to show you. If we head over to the gobies, um, this book has 3 frillfin gobies, but there's some other research papers that show, is it 5? It might be 5 different frillfin gobies that are actually found in Florida and the surrounding waters. So it would be nice if they included them all, but this book was published several years ago, so maybe they just didn't get up to updating it. Maybe there's a new edition that comes out, those will be included. But there are some species that are missing from here. I believe someone also mentioned that they caught some species of grunnel up in New Hampshire that also isn't included in this book, something like that. So it does have close to 1,000 species, but on the very, very rare occasion, I'm sure there's a couple that are missing. And that's almost the entire book. That's all the main points that I wanted to show you. I would like to go to the back, but it does also have just an index. It does have a glossary of some of the terms that the book uses that people might not know. So that's the book. Let's go back to a little wide view and I'll kind of wrap it up and talk about some of the things I like and don't like this a little bit more. Alright guys, so that's going to do it. You saw the inside of the book. I mentioned a lot of the things I do already like and don't like about the book. Number one, I kind of do like the drawings, I guess, because the artist was able to kind of accentuate some of the details that some of the fish have that you can't really see in pictures. Off the top of my head, I'm remembering the Molly Miller Blenny. I caught that, and the pictures that I saw online, you couldn't see, what are they called, sea rye maybe? On top of the head, it has these little thingies, and in the pictures, you couldn't see that they were banded in red and white, even though that was in the description of the pictures. But in the pictures, you couldn't see it. In this book, though, since it was a drawing, the artist was able to kind of accentuate those features, and you were able to see the red and white bands on the sea rye. I think that's the word for it. On top of the head. So that's something good about this book because you're able to see some of the features you might not see in pictures. But I also think that's a little bit of a negative because sometimes the drawings don't look like they do, like the fish would look like in real life. So I do think sometimes the real picture is better, but sometimes the drawing's better. So that's kind of a 50-50 for me. I do like to combine this book with this book. And this book I'm going to probably end up reviewing in my next video. Let me just show you that one real quick, what the inside looks like. The inside has pictures of the actual fish. So we'll talk about this book maybe in one of my future videos. But I do like to look at the drawing in this book and combine it with the picture in that book to kind of get a much more comprehensive, I guess, idea of what the fish should look like. But I do like how this covers the entire east coast of the U.S. So if you're anywhere on the east coast fishing saltwater, this book should do it for you. It does have a pretty good range map, or they're not maps, but really good range description of the fish. A little bit about the habitat. So if you're looking for a particular fish, it'll tell you if it's on if it likes sandy bottoms or muddy bottoms or rocky bottoms, or if it likes coral reefs. So you can kind of target the fish a little bit better based on that information. And it's just a solid book, so I definitely do recommend this. And if you're not on the east coast of the U.S., there's two other books by these same people. So I'm not going to do reviews on these because these are the same exact books, or at least the structure is the same as this one. But they also have a guide for Alaska to California, which I used a little bit when I was fishing in California. And they very recently just came out with this. Actually, I got this 3 months ago, I think, is when it was finally published. So Bermuda, Bahamas, and the Caribbean Sea. And look just how thick this book is compared to these two books. This is almost as thick as both of these books combined. So I guess the Caribbean has a huge amount of species. So this is the most up to date one just because it's literally brand new. A lot of these overlap with the book that we talked about today, the Florida book, the East Coast book, I guess, just because there's a lot of fish species that overlap. But yeah, all three of these books, they have the same structure. So even if you are not on the East Coast of the U.S., and you kind of somehow stumbled across this video, if either of those two books are any interest to you, the structure is exactly the same. So yeah, solid book. Hope you guys like this review. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see you next time.